Greetings to my St. Andrews University family and to all who have chosen to join us on this momentous occasion. As we celebrate and commemorate the life and legacy of the Honorable Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I am humbled and honored to share with you this evening. I would like to share with you from the theme, From Chaos to Community, Where Do We Go From Here? While vacationing in the Caribbean in January 1967, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. wrote the first draft of his final book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community. I find it eerily astonishing that in January 2021, as we honor his birthday, the legitimacy of this treaty still looms paramount in our society. Experiencing the most tumultuous and chaotic social and medical existence of my lifetime, and some of yours, I'm sure, it would not take us long to discover and define the origin which has produced our plight. I believe that it's found in those majestic words of cosmic proportion in the Declaration of Independence. Those words which remind us, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is the American experiment personified, and it is a great promise. However, I submit this today that the perpetuation of fear from what Dr. King would label as the sincerely ignorant and the elimination of our basest human emotion of compassion from conscientious stupidity has uprooted the moral and ethical foundation of the very fabric of our society. Now, fear is defined as a distressing emotion aroused by impending danger, evil, or pain, whether the threat is real or imagined. Too often over the last year, we have all experienced the unsettling strain of racial relations in America, produced by the lack of any empathetic resolve and restraint. We have watched the powers that be promote politics over preservation, which has produced a polarization in our communities. Dr. King vigilantly reminds us that there is a universalism in the Declaration of Independence. In other words, the document is not just for some, it is for all. It's the standard that distinguishes this nation and our form of government from any other system in the world. It provides a faithfully purposed desire resulting from one truth, that each of us has certain basic rights, neither derived from nor conferred to by government, but endowed by our Creator from the dim mist of His eternity. I believe that Dr. King embodied the faith of this document, using it as his underpinning motivation. As I thought about his undying faith and his untiring loyalty to all races, I couldn't help but ponder if we would all attempt to be this courageous and faithfully loyal in our daily pursuits. Black, brown, red, yellow, and white, rich or poor, we all have access to this God-given and God-ordained right to freedom. Nowhere else in human history has a socio-political document ever come closer to expressing with profound and eloquent language this biblical dignity and worth of human personality. The faithful journey of Dr. King reminds all of us that every man and every woman has dignity and worth. But I purport that America has become schizophrenic in our attempt to represent democracy and to dispense social equality to every man and every woman. When we examine the pestilence we're going through COVID-19, we must concede that the impact of this disease has laid bare and completely exposed the widespread health inequalities and disparities, especially but not exclusively in Black and brown communities around this country. It would also be fraudulent for us not to confess that science has proven that death and sickness could very well have been abated if all of us would have listened to the medical and scientific professionals instead of politicians. Unfortunately, some elected officials have been tempted and drawn away by their own lust and desires, thereby enticing so many others to follow. And when that desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And that sin, when fully grown, gives birth to death. Beloved, I adamantly and vehemently submit that the spinning wheels of American justice have been wedged by the grinding wheels of economic greed and tainted by the selfish motivations and discolored representations of the so-called powers that be. Their pursuits have left so many Americans, especially people of color, robbed of our true freedoms. This is the price that we pay when ruling men and women attempt to circumvent the Creator's design and devise their own anemic democracy. Has America's democratic process become more elusive because we have thrown God's definition of freedom overboard in favor of our own? A nation who values anything more than freedom is doomed to lose its freedom. I declare that we cannot, as a nation, redefine God's definition of democracy. If we expect to change the systemic racial overtones that continue to permeate the moral fabric of our daily lives, America must begin to accept simultaneously our Creator's original design and the dream of Dr. King's beloved community. When we develop the courage as a Martin King Jr. to acknowledge that we are all brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, and join together to participate in challenging racial, cultural, and gender biases, then, beloved, we will begin to live harmoniously. We are truly at a pivotal inflection point in America. We stand on the precipice of generational change amid national and global injustices. We must continue to sense the urgency of the task before us. Sincere and actual brotherhood and sisterhood. Dr. King gave us the blueprint of true democracy, which offers all of us the chance to be what the Creator intended for us. To this end, I, like Dr. King, strongly believe in America, although we, the historically disenfranchised, we, the marginalized, we, the maligned, have been pummeled by racial, social, educational, and economic injustices, bruised by greed, soiled by arrogance and ignorance, and brutally beaten and killed. I still have a sincere and empathetic hope. Now, one may ask, how can you be so optimistic in the wake of so much pain? I was privileged to teach the first on-campus Black Lives Matters class last semester. A special thanks to our president, Dr. Ellen Bernhardt, and our vice president of academic affairs and academic dean, Dr. Edna Ann Loftus, for their genuine support, care, and concern to nurture a holistic student experience at St. Andrews University, as well as their compassion and compassionate engagement with my efforts to facilitate this class. I'm so excited and I look forward to continuing this journey with them and with the student body. Watching my students wrestle with the hard questions in an uninhibited exchange was truly life-changing. I literally saw black, white, brown, red, and yellow young adults galvanize themselves from a chaotic, very standoffish, and stagnant beginning to the embodiment of the Reverend Jesse Jackson's Rainbow Coalition as they continued to authentically challenge themselves. Through these hard conversations, they created a vulnerability which freed them to cultivate that beloved community that Dr. King must have envisioned. While listening to these courageous and scholarly Gen Zers push themselves through an honest exchange of ideas as they simultaneously developed and provided a safe space to promote democracy, I found myself completely humbled and ashamed. I was humbled by their boldness, and I was ashamed because they pushed me to acknowledge personal racial biases and cultural prejudices. However, as I listened to these brilliant intellectuals dialogue and debate to establish a new agenda based on character content rather than skin color, I began to acknowledge that this beloved community in PE 104 on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11 a.m. to 12:15 p.m. Yes, these like-minded and authentically honest young adults revealed to me that Gen Zers have the compassionate power and the open-mindedness, the tolerance, empathy, and unity to change America and the world, as I emphatically told them before every class ended. From chaos to community. Where do we go from here? Beloved, I believe this is our answer. I believe that our youth and young adults have already begun the hard work of charting a new course out of many years of racial, gender, social, and political chaos to guide us all into a new, amalgamated, and beloved community. If we would only allow them to teach us through their very own precepts and examples how to love one another, we too could become the change agents that Dr. King consistently portrayed as a drum major for justice. I believe that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would totally concur with me when I say that we must hold hope firmly in our grasp, like a masterpiece whose time has come. God, grant that America will be true to ourselves. God, grant that we become so dissatisfied with tyrannical and bigoted-minded government leaders. God, grant that we become dissatisfied with America's obsession for greed, racial inequality, idiosyncratic dogma, and our tendencies for selective and convenient amnesia of deeds. Beloved, the road ahead will not always be smooth. There will be rocky places of frustration and meandering points of bewilderment. There will be inevitable setbacks here and there. And there will be those moments when the buoyancy of our hope will be transformed into the fatigue of despair. But as we continue together on our charted course from chaos to community, may we gain consolation penned from the words of Alma Thompson as she so eloquently allowed us to hear. If I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can cheer somebody with a word or song, if I can show somebody that he's traveling wrong, then my living shall not be in vain. Then my living shall not be in vain. Then my living shall not be in vain. If I can help somebody as I pass along, then my living shall not be in vain. Thank you for allowing me to share with you, and may God continue to bless you.